So I'm sure you all have heard about the Fraud Watch Network, but if you haven't, we're a free resource for all. What we do is we equip consumers with up-to-date knowledge to spot and avoid scams, and we connect those who are targeted by scams with our fraud helpline specialists, and they provide support and guidance on what to do next. We also advocate at the federal, state, and local levels to enact policy changes that protect consumers and enforce laws. And so my role is I'm an advisor on the fraud prevention programs team. So I work with our partners, both internally across AARP, like our wonderful state offices, like you all in Wisconsin, as well as other teams like our caregiving team and our Veterans and Military Families Initiative. And I also work externally, like with federal government agencies like the Federal Trade Commission and the U.S. Postal Inspection Service, as well as other groups. Like we even work with the Oak Ridge Boys, the country music band. And all of us work together to get the word out about how you and your loved ones can stay safe from scams and fraud. So we like to say, if you can spot a scam, you can stop a scam. So that's what we try to empower you to do.
Awesome. It's a lot of work that covers a lot of ground. So what resources does AARP provide to help you, to help people, as you say, spot and stop scams?
Absolutely. Well, on the fraud prevention side, we have a number of resources that connect consumers to different information to help keep you all safe. So we have the AARP Fraud Watch Network website, which is aarp.org/fraudwatchnetwork. And there you can access news and tips and videos on how you can spot common scams. We even have a scam tracking map that features reports from scam spotters and law enforcement. We offer bi-weekly watchdog alerts via email and text, and they're also available in Spanish through text message. We have a weekly podcast called The Perfect Scam. And we also do a number of webinars, telephone town halls. We're very active on social media, and there's regular content in each issue of AARP, the magazine, and the AARP Bulletin. And again, thank you, Courtney, to you in Wisconsin and our other incredible state offices that are very active in fraud prevention education. I did want to mention too, that if someone realizes that they or a loved one have seen or possibly fallen victim to a scam, again, they can call the AARP Fraud Watch Network helpline, and there we provide support if victimization occurs. So that phone number is 877-908-3360, toll-free number. It's folks are there Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern time. They get between 300 and 500 calls a day. And we have volunteers from, I think, close to 20 states who help out with the helpline. You can report scams there. You can go there for guidance if you want to know if something is legitimate or a scam. And again, if you need help, if you or a loved one have fallen victim, you can give them a call. And last year, almost 100,000 people called the helpline, and the average call lasted, I think, around 20 minutes. So they're a great resource.
Awesome. And I will say, I know there were some websites and phone numbers there. We will have a slide at the end with that information while we're taking questions. So, and I did drop that in the chat as well. So Liz, I feel like I am pretty good at telling people about, the website and stuff like that. And I think a lot of different organizations have kind of just information, but one thing that I think that AARP does that is unique is the support groups. So can you tell us more about the online support groups?
Sure. So we offer an online peer support group for fraud victims. It's called REST. Fraud victimization is not only financially devastating, but it's emotionally devastating as well, especially for older adults. So as people would call the fraud helpline, our volunteers, kept expressing they wanted to do more to help the victims with their emotional healing. So we were actually connected with Volunteers of America, and we adapted their successful program, REST, which stands for Resilience, Strength, and Time. And what the program does is we address the emotional impact of your fraud experience. So we have free facilitated peer discussion group. They're run by trained AARP facilitators, and we provide the emotional support for you and for others in similar situations. And they're 1 hour, they're free, and they're held virtually through Zoom. They're open to anybody across the country of any age, and you can talk about your own personal fraud experience or what you're currently experiencing as a loved one supporting a fraud victim. And you don't need to be an AARP member in order to access this resource. And this is a program we started last June, so we're just over the 1-year mark. The program's held in a secure space. It requires advanced registration through Hey Peers, which is a third-party support group platform. And we found that rest helps because first, it lowers people's stress by practicing intentional breathing, and it focuses on what's going on in your body. More importantly, it provides people with a safe and confidential space to talk about the challenges that they're facing, and they don't have to worry about feeling embarrassed or being criticized there. And what's discussed in the group stays in the group, so it's confidential. And connecting to other victims or loved ones of victims can help someone feel less alone, and realize that other people are going through something similar to what they are.
And I think that last part you mentioned about being able to see other people that it's happened to is so critical, because I think sometimes people have this conception that it's in some way a unique experience, or that they're the only people it's happened to, and it's just so helpful to see that you're not alone. So what are the different, if someone's interested in the REST program, what are the different components of a REST session?
Sure, and I realized I should have mentioned the website where you can learn more about REST. So it's aarp.org/fraud support. Excuse me. So there's actually 4 stages to a REST session. I'll give you a quick overview. So stage 1 is when we do an introduction and an icebreaker. We highlight why the program is offered. Well, it's offered to reduce the natural and normal feelings of distress that come from having experienced a crime against you or against somebody you love. And, the feelings involved are very painful, and they run everywhere from embarrassment to sadness. And, we hear it all in the sessions. So the session's a chance for people to share their distress, feel less alone, and sharing can help reduce the pain of your feelings. Stage 2 is belly breathing, meditation, and then we open up for sharing. So what belly breathing does, it slows your heart rate. It lowers your stress, and it helps you to focus on the present, and to listen without distractions, and to feel less anxious. And you can visibly see as we're running the sessions that the breathing actually helps people. You see their shoulders come down, and their facial expressions are more relaxed. Meditation, does the same thing. And all of that's done because we want people to feel more open to sharing. And the bulk of the REST session really is spent in sharing time, sharing how you're feeling about what you've experienced or what's going on for your loved one. And it's a great place you can connect with folks, reinforces that you're not alone. We provide you with the emotional support that you're looking for. And we've heard countless times from participants that once they talk about what they're going through, it really feels like a weight has been lifted off of their shoulders. Because sharing can take a lot out of you. Stage 3 is an affirmation. So we like to finish each session on a positive note. So an affirmation could include, we ask, what's something you'll do for self-care after today's session? Or what is something that you learned about yourself after today? And then that leads into our closing. We stress that the participants, that you're not alone, that you will get through this, that we're in this together. We also share resources. We invite you to attend as many sessions as you want. You can attend one or as many as you need. And then we leave things with a powerful closing statement because we want you to feel so much better than you did before the session began. And again, I want to emphasize too, both attendees and facilitators find this support group to be so helpful in coping with the emotional trauma that they're experiencing. So it's such a rewarding program.
Yeah, it sounds absolutely amazing. And I think the when you talk about the breathing and meditation and kind of being in your body in the moment, that's something, once you have that, you can kind of use it over and over again in lots of situations. So it's obviously great to address the current issue, but it's so nice to see that you guys are providing something that's a long-term help as well.
I love that you bring that up, like the coping skills and that you can do, not just during that session. And, there are some people who go into the session not feeling like, okay, is the breathing or the meditation really going to help me? Once they experience it, they realize that the impact it has physically and mentally on their body.
Yeah, and it's something that's so easy to do. So it's amazing that you guys are providing that. Awesome. So you're doing this work kind of on the end of like the emotional impact and stuff like that. I know that AARP is also working on addressing kind of how we as a society even talk about fraud victimization. So can you talk a little more about that kind of initiative and why it's so important?
Sure, absolutely. And before I talk about that, Courtney, if you have the video I shared with you, it was would love for folks to see it. It was created by our friends in AARP Connecticut, and I think they did such a wonderful job.
I was very upset with myself. How could I be such a fool to let this happen to me? And of course, the tears came, the depression came.
Primarily, first of all, it is not your fault. It's really important that they understand that.
And I also felt that nobody really cared, and that there are tons of people out there, or many people out there, that are in the same situation, but nobody is listening.
REST stands for Resilience, Strength, and Time, and it's an online, peer-led support group, a safe space where victims of scams and or their loved ones can come to you to talk about all the emotions that they're feeling as a result of what they're experiencing.
Via Zoom, join with a small group of people, and you talk about the experience in a way that helps you sort of integrate it and move on. And 201, the individuals that we've helped with this, have said it's just lifted such a burden off of their shoulders.
Changing the stigma about how folks talk about victimization is so important, because then more people will come forward and more cases will hopefully be pursued.
Understood it wasn't my fault, it wasn't me that had the wrong, that I could fight the situation and I could make a difference.
Even just helping one person feel like they're not alone, it all makes a difference. And this is the most rewarding job that I have ever had. Thanks for sharing that, Courtney. Yeah, it's so impactful to actually hear from Reggie and others about what they're going through. So I don't need to, say this again, but I will. Scammers steal billions of dollars from unsuspecting consumers each year. And as we've talked about, the impact on victims and their families is both financially and emotionally devastating, especially for older adults. Unfortunately, to society, all crime victims are not alike. And society's language blames people who lose money to a scam. They'll say she fell for it, or he was duped, or you got scammed. And these are words of judgment. And even victims, when they aren't too embarrassed to admit that they fell victim, use harsh words to describe what happened to them. And we hear this in every REST session that we run, and the helpline hears it all the time. So, what reality is that people who fall victim to scams and fraud are just that. They are victims, as with other crimes in our society. So we want to, and we need to change the narrative about how we, collective we, talk about those who experience scams and fraud. So What we're trying to do at AARP is pave the way. We want to make sure we're leading by example. So we've been working on eliminating shaming language from all AARP communications. And then we're going to focus on bringing this message to external groups and our external partners so that they can do the same thing. You know, it's a language of shame right now. Victims of scams frequently don't experience empathy and consolation. And instead, many times they're confronted with disbelief and other horrible remarks. And it really weighs on folks. You know, self-blame is common among victims. We hear that all the time. And fraud victims have suffered enough, and they deserve empathy and respect. So we want to flip the narrative on the way we all think about financial fraud victims. So instead of using words that are judgmental, we want to switch to language that puts the focus and the blame on the criminals. So, you know, in a perfect world, victims of these crimes will feel supported. You know, law enforcement will investigate the cases, prosecutors will send the criminals to jail, and lawmakers will put an end to the multi-billion-dollar fraud industry. So we all have the power to change the way we talk and think about victims of financial crimes, and together we want to do that.
And it is, you know, such hard work because it is so ingrained to talk about scams in a certain way. And I think, like you said, it's important to think of the scammers as criminals. And I think once you kind of start to frame it that way, people start to see like, oh, you had like a crime committed against you. Because, you know, we try not to blame people of other types of crimes, crime victims. So it's important, yeah, that we kind of apply that to all crimes that happen. So this is kind of a good segue with what you just said and what was mentioned in the video as well, that the kind of relieving some of the shame and reframing the way we look at it then leads to more reports coming in. So we had a question from one of our attendees, Reed, and he says that, you know, he checks the Fraud Watch map and stuff seems to pop up, you know, like every other month, but we know it's happening more frequently than that. Sorry, excuse me. So I guess we already kind of know part of the reason people aren't reporting, but why is reporting to law enforcement or reporting in general so important?
Sure, and that's a great question. I know the video touched on it a little bit, but and to your point, if we change how society talks about victimization, people will be less afraid to come forward. So first of all, by reporting it, you know, investigators and federal government agencies like the Federal Trade Commission, they're aware of what's going on. And these folks, like at the Department of Justice, U.S. Postal Inspection Service, et cetera, are investigating these crimes, and criminals are brought to justice. But they can't do that unless people report what has happened. So that's super important. Also, you know, we need to know what to look out for. What we as consumers need to do to feel empowered and keep us and our loved ones safe. So by knowing what's out there, we can do that. And we as AARP can help you. The scam tracking map is just a fraction of what is reported. You know, folks, in order for something right now, at least, to be included on the map, they report it there. But we also have, as I said, close to 100,000 people a year calling the helpline to report scams that they're seeing. And we, in turn, share that information with the Federal Trade Commission and others who are working on the investigations. So it may seem intimidating, or you may feel shame and not want to report, but please do, because it really could make the difference in somebody's life and in getting the bad guys locked away.
Definitely. And I know, you know, throughout this series, we've kind of been sitting down with different Wisconsin organizations, and that's kind of a recurring theme with everyone, is to please report, because, I mean, if you don't report it, nothing is ever going to happen. So it's really important to do that. And so speaking of the Wisconsin groups we've worked with, I know the Fraud Watch Network is a national program, and we in the state office do work specifically around fraud prevention. But I was wondering, you know, with the helpline and all the work that you're involved in, if you have any Wisconsin-specific cases that you could share with us today.
Absolutely. So I reached out to our wonderful colleagues at the helpline. So shout out to Mark there, and he pulled. There's a lot of calls from Wisconsin residents that have come in this year. I wanted to just share a few. So somebody reported that they lost $70,000 in an online romance scam. Another caller said that they received a call from a fake debt collector, and they shared their social security number and bank account information with them, and that resulted in their identity being stolen and them losing money. Somebody else said that Publishers Clearinghouse had called them saying they won a prize, but in order to claim the prize, they needed to send over $1,000 in gift cards. Another caller said that a scammer who was pretending to be the closing department of a mortgage company said that they owed $269,000. So the caller sent the funds via wire transfer, and the money's gone, so horrifically, she's out $269,000. Somebody else said that they hired someone to redo their back porch. They gave the supposed contractor $3,000 for down payment, and the fraudulent contractor never showed up. There's countless examples like this. This is just a sample of, what's coming in Wisconsin.
Yeah, and just speaking with the partners kind of across the state, a lot of these scams are stuff that's happening all over Wisconsin. Like, those are not necessarily isolated things, and they're happening all over the country. So it just really drives home, when we talk about a scam in Wisconsin, like, you might feel like you're the only one who experienced like this romance scam, but they're happening all over the country, and it just really drives home this point of like finding the support that you need, whether that's prevention resources from us or support groups or whatever it is that you need. There's people out there who have experienced it as well.
Absolutely. Courtney, if I could add one more thing, because there are so many different scams going on, the Fraud Watch Network website, there's a page on there, the Fraud Watch Network Resource Center. It's linked to it on the Fraud Watch Network website, but there's not only 80 plus tip sheets that focus on all the scams that are out there, but it's constantly being updated, the pages, with articles about the latest scams that are going on. So that's a great place to learn more about what's going on. And then on our social media accounts, we'll all often do Facebook Lives or put out tweets or Facebook posts as soon as we hear about something from either the helpline or via one of our external partners or even a state office like in Wisconsin.
Awesome. I'm just looking, I know you provided the slide, so I'm looking for that with the resources right now. But while I am looking for that, I know you mentioned kind of some like specific Wisconsin cases. And we, like I mentioned, and you said, we see them kind of the same across the country, but are there any other trending ones that you're hearing about on the helpline that people should be on the lookout for right now?
Sure. So Mark said that right now the latest ones are really kind of the tried and true scams that have been going on. A huge one always is online romance scams. And those are not just targeting people who use dating sites, but they're targeting people through Facebook Messenger, words with friends, stuff like that. So I just want to cover a couple red flags that would probably be helpful. If someone's pictures make them look unbelievably attractive, if they say they're on active duty stationed abroad or on a business trip abroad, if they then ask you to quickly, start communicating with them off of the original site or platform, if they profess love early on, if you're never able to meet up in person for one reason or another, and then if they ask you money, they'll keep asking you money, promise to pay you back. Maybe they need it for a medical emergency or something like that, or bail money. They're not going to pay you back. Instead, they're going to keep asking you for more and more money until you realize it's a scam and cut them off. So online romance scams are one of the top ones out there. And of course, government imposter scams. So I'm sure we've all gotten these calls, right? You'll get an alarming or threatening call from a federal government agency or any government agency like the Social Security Administration or the IRS. And they'll threaten you. They could say that your Social Security number has been suspended, or maybe that you owe back taxes and will face immediate arrest if you don't act now and pay money. So, the government doesn't contact you out of the blue about a problem, and they're certainly not going to call you about an official matter. They'll send you a letter. And then just, all the other scams out there, tech support scams, grandparent scams. There's great tip sheets in the Fraud Resource Center. I do want to say too, for any of these scams, if I can reinforce what I know you all are always reinforcing, Courtney, please don't give any money. Don't share your personal information. Don't send cash, don't wire money, don't purchase gift cards and then give the numbers from the gift cards or the cash reload cards to the scammers. The scammers love these payment methods because they're difficult to trace. And then regarding peer-to-peer payment apps like Venmo or Zelle, please only give money through those if it's a trusted friend or a family member that and you physically met in person and that you trust. Please don't send money to strangers through that method.
Yeah, so that is all, like you said, kind of tried and true. And these are things that we see a lot of the time. And I'm going to hopefully bring up this slide now. So you can, like Liz mentioned, on our website there, you can find those tip sheets about all of those different scams that are kind of, like we say, like reoccurring. They just continue to crop up in different ways. So I know Liz had a lot of great tips and information. And if you're sitting there like, that was so much, there is the website. So you can find all of that information reiterated there. And, because you mentioned specifically the romance scams and the threatening with the government things, I just really want to say again that this REST program, the support groups, are so important, especially in those cases where someone thinks, they've made a genuine connection, and then it turns out, they were a victim of a crime, or, being threatened is emotionally taxing and scary. And so addressing the emotional impact of these is just so important. So thank you, Liz, for all of your work on, the support groups and all of the programs you do. And I will just also quickly say, because you mentioned, volunteers run the helpline, volunteers were kind of a catalyst in getting the support groups going. So, if you are watching this and you want to be involved as well, you can always reach out to us. We love having fresh new volunteers who are excited to get to work and help other people as well. So lots of great resources, our website, the helpline, support groups. Thank you, Liz, so much for going through all of it. Are there any parting notes or anything that you would like to leave viewers with?
Sure, and thank you for having me, Courtney. And again, a huge thank you to you and your volunteers and everybody in Wisconsin for your great work in this area. I'm just going to leave you with this. If you can spot a scam, you can stop a scam. So, and please, you are not alone. Please reach out to us. You can email, the Wisconsin team, or you can send us an email at the Fraud Watch Network, fwn@aarp.org. We are here for you. We're here to support you, and you're not alone.
Great. Thank you so much. And as a reminder, this session was recorded. You'll get the link to the recording with all of these great resources. And next month, we'll be talking about robocalls. So we hope to see you for that one as well. And until then, stay safe, everyone. Thank you.